Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman. Hello and welcome listeners to episode 99 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid. In today's episode, I'm talking to Tracy from Horsham, West Sussex here in the UK. Tracy runs her own award-winning yoga studio in the south of England, and she has been a VIP member of the Declutter Hub membership since September last year, and she's absolutely loving her decluttering journey. And Tracy reached out to me and Leslie and said, can I please come onto your podcast? Because I really want to share my story with you. So we were so excited. We were absolutely, come on the podcast. So welcome, Tracy. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you so very much for having me. I really appreciate it, both to you and Leslie.
You're so welcome. And we had a lovely chat already this morning, didn't we? About kind of everything. And congratulations on winning your award for Best Yoga Studio. That was exciting.
I know. Thank you, Ingrid. Yeah, Best Yoga Studio in Sussex. I won an award. So yeah, very exciting. Thank you.
So have you been doing yoga for a long time? And how did it come about? And I've got so many questions I want to ask you.
I know, and we've talked already. Yes, I have been practicing yoga for a long time. Yes, I got into yoga after a really nasty traffic accident in 1997. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was hit by a bus in Vancouver when I was studying in Canada. Wow. And it was a life-changing moment, absolutely, for me. So yeah, that's how, trying to rehabilitate a year or so later, a doctor told me, a doctor at the Foreign Office where I worked at the time said, we can't post you abroad, you need to get better, try yoga. So that was the start of my yoga journey, 1998. Yeah, a long time ago now. And I just was hooked from the very, very first class I went to. I was totally hooked, loved it.
So you started with classes and then you kind of became a teacher and now you own your own studio then?
Yes, that's right. Yes. When I met my husband, I realized that working in an office and doing the job that I did was keeping me quite stagnant and it wasn't really fulfilling me. Either physically or emotionally at all. So we spoke, my husband and I said that I wanted to train to be a yoga teacher and teach from a summer house at the end of our garden, which is where summer house yoga comes from, because we now have a summer house in our garden. I trained from 2004 and qualified in 2007. So I've been teaching yoga since then. Since 2007. But it was when we moved to Horsham just over 10 years ago, we moved to Horsham and I set up Summer House Yoga then. And so the studio is in my home. People come to classes normally at home, but obviously at the moment, everything's online. It's been a real journey for me, but one that I've absolutely loved, really. So feel so grateful to be able to teach yoga at home. And I've recently added a kind of a well-being arm onto my yoga. So Summer House Yoga and Wellbeing, and that's really, I think, the link with you, Ingrid, and with the Declutter Hub, the kind of the well-being side of things.
Yeah. Well, what we're definitely going to do, Tracy, is we're going to put your link to Summer House Yoga in the show notes, because you can actually see a picture of Tracy's summer house in her garden, in case you were thinking to yourself, oh, how does this work with this summer house? I'm intrigued. So we'll put a link to your website in the show notes so people can have a look at it and want to see how, and it looks very relaxing.
Thank you very much. It is. Yeah.
So we were talking this morning and you mentioned something very interesting, because you think that some parts of the teachings within yoga are linked to decluttering. I find that very interesting. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the kind of philosophical foundations of yoga. So we go right back to a really kind of ancient text called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And people think that yoga is just about kind of making shapes on a yoga mat, really. And it really, really isn't. That's not yoga. Certainly not all of the entirety of yoga. We go back to kind of the basic principles, fundamental philosophy, and there's two particular aspects of yoga. We call them the yamas and the niyamas, and they're ways in which they're kind of the do's and don'ts of yoga. How do we live our lives? How do we interact with the world? How do we interact with ourselves, our families, our homes? And there's two particular aspects of those that I think really link in with decluttering and my decluttering journey, one of which is called Aparigraha, which translates as non-grasping. Interestingly, one of the definitions is non-hoarding and non-attachment, not being attached to anything really, whether that's material things or places or even people and pets. I'll come back to that in a minute. And the second aspect is called saucha, or cleanliness and tidiness. And that is of our homes, of our beings, our persons, of our minds, of our emotions. So just having that purity, not just of body, possibly practiced through, the yoga postures and things, but also where we're practicing yoga, having this kind of lovely, clean, tidy space, and therefore on of our homes as well. Going back to the Aparigraha, the non-attachment, when I first learned about that was on my teacher training back in 2004, 2005. And my first child, my oldest daughter, Emma, was a baby, like a tiny baby then. So, and we had just moved into a lovely new home, and I had my family, and I was, okay, that concept is not for me. Definitely not. There are things in yoga that I absolutely love. Definitely, I'll take these on board, I'll work with them, not that one. And that, going back kind of 15, 16 years, definitely, that Aparigraha, non-attachment, I can't do that. I'm very attached to this little baby and to my home and things in my home. I take lots of photographs as well, so really attached to my photographs, and just that concept's not for me. Of course, over the years, I've learned and practiced ways in which I can practice this particular concept in yoga. And I think with your help, joining the Declutter Hub, and that's helped me even further in my journey towards non-attachment, and so living that yoga. I was already quite good at saucha, the cleanliness and tidiness. I'm pretty good at that, but the two go hand in hand, really. Yeah, they're the main, I think, philosophical ideas of yoga that really spoke to me and linked in with the Declutter Hub, definitely.
I find that very interesting because I have done a little bit of yoga myself.
Oh, wonderful.
It's a while ago, and then started clashing with my singing, and singing kind of came above yoga, I'm sorry to say. But
singing is wonderful,
yeah.
Wonderful, and a part of yoga.
Yes, for sure. So but in my head, it was always about, the downward dog and being able to sit cross-legged. And so I find it very interesting to learn from you that
absolutely.
There are so many parts connected to yoga.
Yeah, so much more to yoga than just the mat. So much more. And they're the really interesting aspects, really. Yeah, so everybody comes to, I say everybody, most people come to yoga for the physical.
Yeah.
But they end up staying for all of these other, emotional, mindful aspects of yoga. So yeah, these have all come from kind of the ancient texts, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So like this eight-limbed steps, and the first two, before you even do any postures, include those aspects that I was just talking about earlier of non-attachment and cleanliness.
What was your kind of, how and why did you go into decluttering? Because I know we're going to talk about our podcast a little bit in a little bit, but what kind of happened? What shifted for you?
I think it was having the children, really. I've got two girls, 16 and 12 now. And it was just that kind of that family home situation where you've just, you get lots of presents for the children, lots of toys. We had lots of outdoor toys, lots of indoor toys. We are lucky enough to have a lovely home with lots of space. But even so, there was just too much stuff. So my first kind of foray into it, I think, was actually selling things on a local Facebook page. So I realized that we had, believe it or not, about 5 toy prams. and so one Sunday I just put all of these 5, or perhaps 4 of the 5 toy prams onto a local Facebook selling page, and was absolutely astounded that 10 minutes later they'd all been spoken for. Yeah, that enjoyment, that rush, that, the happiness of stuff going, leaving the house, finding more space, because those 5 pushchairs had all lived in the summer house. Getting some more space back in the summer house was just wonderful. And so, yeah, I think that was the start of it. And just realizing that I needed to keep on top of the children getting older, growing out of toys, growing out of clothes, and needing to, find homes for them to go to. But I'm not somebody, as a lot of your members are exactly the same, we definitely don't want to put things into landfill. We want to find ways to recycle things, or for other things to get a happy home. I mean, a lot of your listeners will know a lot of toys and clothes from children are barely used, barely worn, and definitely someone else can benefit from them. So yeah, that was the first thing. And then, of course, I started looking a little bit more into what we had around the home. So my husband is very, he doesn't really keep anything at all, so he is one of these people who, if he buys 3 new t-shirts, then 3 old t-shirts go out. If he buys 5 new shirts, 5 old shirts go out. I am absolutely not like that at all. I am the total opposite. I mentioned I really struggled with the concept of non-attachment, and I definitely over the years have been attached to things, whether that's clothes or ornaments or photographs, whatever it may be, and I find it really hard to get rid of stuff. But I was managing to do it quite easily with most of the children's stuff, not all of them. My husband manages to do it really, really well. But of course, I'm the one that's in charge of the house and the home. And so I realised that I probably needed a bit of help for myself, just help to sort my own things out, my own clothes, the rooms, I still have actually, Ingrid, despite your recent podcasts, I still have all my course notes from my university degrees. I'll probably keep one kind of published research paper when I eventually get around to doing them. But yeah, I still have a lot of books and a lot of, I struggle. So I needed some help for myself, I think. Yeah, and that was looking for. So yeah, I guess I was just searching the internet and podcasts for decluttering things. And I think I came across your podcast, the Declutter Hub, maybe around the start of 2019, the end of 2018, the start of 2019, I came across your Declutter Hub podcast and thought, this is it. These are the people. I like them. I tried a couple of others, but your voices, your practical advice, super practical advice. Yeah, just I thought, right, this is it. This is my journey. I'm going to really grasp onto this.
And you've listened to, I think, all of them, haven't you, Tracy?
Yes. Oh,
and, yeah, and you've got a couple of favorites as well, haven't you?
Oh yes, absolutely, I do. Yeah, I've got a few favourites actually, but I have whittled them down to the top 3, I think, or top 3.5 anyway. So my favourites, I think, and in no particular order, I have to say, my favourites are, well, maybe I think possibly the first one I listened to was episode 16 with Anne Bloomer, who was talking about her 5 steps to organising. And in that one, she also mentioned the podcast number 2 that you and Leslie did about what's the difference between decluttering, organising and tidying. And listening to those 2 podcasts together that was my aha moment, my light bulb moment. My goodness me, I can start to see, my home and my stuff as like a project, things that I need to invest some time into this. I need to really think about this and make some progress. And of course, so I used Anne's 5 steps. I'm not going to remember them all now, but the first one was definitely strategize, prioritize, and then it carried on. So it was, what do you use this space for? Looking around the room that you're in your home, what is this used for? And is everything in that space useful or beautiful, in the words of William Morris, for that space? Do you need to have it there? Is it in the wrong space? Prioritizing then, do you need to have it at all? Can you declutter it, basically? That's the first, and that was the link with your declutterizing. And then to kind of, then find systems and processes to put in place in that room that makes that room work. Now, I think I started with quite a difficult room because it was the small room that was our office, which is now a snug. So that's where all of my yoga books are. That's where all of our kind of filing is. Also, the girls and I, my daughters and I, love to sew. So our 2 sewing machines are in that room, some crafting stuff, that kind of thing. And it was is all of this in the right place? We had a desk in there and a chair. So we sold the desk, sold the chair, got rid of that. We didn't need them. They were just attracting clutter. Put in a small sofa instead, and really kind of, that room became usable again. Rather than being a dumping ground, that room became usable again, and I loved it. So that was my first kind of favorite podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My second one, which is possibly my all-time favorite, is the Command Center, the podcast about the Command Center, number 21, and that was you and Leslie talking about how to set up. Again, it was about bringing things together, so, or thinking of all those jobs that you have to do on a day-to-day basis, get the kids out to school, plan your day, work, plan a meal, make them, whatever it may be. And all of the other jobs, have everything in one place, have your command center. And I set about, probably that very day, setting up a command center in my utility. I have a small utility that no one else goes in but me. And it's my space. So I kind of cleared everything off the surfaces and made my own little command center. So I now have 3 notice boards in there, one for me and each of the 2 girls, and an online and on the wall calendar. I moved my iPad in there, and all sorts of stuff like that I just loved. So I loved that episode, and I remember sharing that episode with a really, really good friend of mine. She absolutely loved it as well, and then she and I would share photos of our command centers and get command centers and be with each other. That was brilliant. I really enjoyed that episode. And then my third of the top 3 has to be From Frazzled to Focused with Rivka Caroline, where she gave us some steps to kind of move, being, busy mums. How do we move from being, frazzled to focused? And that really appealed to me, because at the time that one came out, that was episode 46 of Hamstead, I was feeling a bit frazzled. I was definitely feeling a bit chaotic. And her first kind of piece of advice was about meal planning. You probably remember, I know you've done other meal planning podcasts since then as well, specifically to that, but that was her first one. And she said, don't try and do, I think there might have been 10 suggestions. Don't try and do all 10 in one day or even one week. Do them one at a time. Get that routine established, that new habit formation, get that established, and then see if you can move on to the next one. And the very first one was meal planning. Now, that was really important to me at the time, because 4 nights a week, I was having yoga students coming in after dinner, 8 o'clock, 4 nights a week, and staying till 10. So dinner had to be ready, had to be on the table, had to be, and I don't like cooking. I just don't like. I remember Rivka saying, actually, one of the things she said was, the thing is that children need to eat, like, every day. I know it's pain. It's a real pain, but they need to eat every day. And I really felt like that. Oh, it's a real pain. It's terrible to say, isn't it? But it's a real pain. They need to eat every day. And I'm not good at cooking. So I was definitely one of those mums that was going to the shops almost every day or every other day, and just, buying whatever for that night. So it wasn't in any way focused or organized or anything else. And on the back of that podcast, my husband and I started with the girls on a Sunday. We'd make a meal plan for the week, and whether I was cooking it or perhaps my husband Lee would come home from work a little bit early to be able to make dinner, and we'd shop to the menu and we'd cook and it was so much more organized. Remember Rivka saying, I don't want you to be that mum that is driving home from, in my case, it could be dance classes or trampolining classes or whatever, and thinking about what on earth am I going to put on the table, and it's already 6:30. And I was absolutely that person, definitely. So that helped me doing the meal planning and getting dinner. Perhaps we bought a slow cooker so that was done and put away by the time my students were arriving for yoga classes, which was just so much better. So yeah, they're my top 3 recommendations, I think.
Love it. So then you because you're listening to the podcast, you're getting bits and bobs done in your house. But then you decided to join the Declutter Hub, didn't you?
I did. Yes, I did. So I'd been listening to you for, would it have been, quite a few months by then, at least half a year or so. Yeah. And following you on Facebook as well, being part of the community, which I love, being part of that, definitely. And my birthday is at the end of August, and my mum, bless her, always gives me some money for my birthday, which is what I asked for. That's great. But I just knew I just didn't want any more stuff. I had enough handbags, I had enough jewelry, I had enough of everything. I was at the phase then of really, really getting rid of things, trying to declutter my stuff as well. And I thought, right, I know what I'm going to spend this money on. And you were doing a lovely special offer. And I thought, I'm going to be a member. I'm going to be one of your first members of the Declutter Hub. So yeah, so that's what I spent my birthday money on. Does that sound strange?
Not at all.
Stuff.
It sounds like a very good investment to me.
It has been. Absolutely. It has been a brilliant investment. Yeah, I've loved it. And it has helped me to keep going. So your courses, I've had many a happy moments myself in the kitchen before pre-lockdown with the girls at school, my husband at work, and just watching on my iPad or whatever your videos and making notes and right, okay, I'm going to start to tackle this room or this drawer or this wardrobe or whatever it may be with the help of your video courses. So yeah, many a happy time when I was in a house by myself, getting ready to do some decluttering and organising and taking lots of things to a local charity shop or to some of the collections, the recycling collection centres, or putting them on the local Facebook pages for selling. I do quite a lot of, had been doing quite a lot of that previously. So yeah, I've really, really enjoyed being part of the members area, definitely.
How do you think doing it more with structured courses, and how has that changed the way you do your decluttering, and how has it changed your view about your home?
I think, one of the things that obviously being part of the Declutter Hub gives you is accountability. So I like accountability. I can do things on my own, with my own motivation, but I definitely find accountability helps, absolutely. So knowing that perhaps I might be reporting back on into the Facebook group or into the members area or on a call with you and Leslie. I remember asking one of the questions in your kind of live Q&A sessions. I remember being so proud when one of my questions got chosen to get talked about, and listening intently and making notes. And I just think that having the structure and the interaction with you as professionals has just encouraged me to do it, really, to make time for it, to perhaps to schedule some time for it. So that's a real kind of strategy, isn't it, to try to make sure that you're doing this thing. I think it's easy for us just to carry on living in our homes and not noticing what's around us. The home I was brought up in, my house at home, my mum and dad and my sister, our home was very cluttered. Neither my mum or dad ever really got rid of anything. They loved their stuff. And so I think it's very easy for people to do that and just to continue with that. But if you know that you want to start to make your home a bit more organized, a bit tidier, a bit calmer, a bit more serene, then there's work to do. And to do that work, you've got to treat it like work, really, schedule a time for it, maybe be accountable to somebody or, a group, or like the Declutter Hub provides, and to have some goals, some priorities. So your kind of video courses, and I know that some of them you've done are in a particular order so that you can build on things. You don't necessarily start with the hardest things, start with some easy things. So that I know you and Leslie say things like you need to build these decluttering muscles. You need to, just like anything, perhaps in a yoga practice, you've got to practice a particular posture or practice to develop those skills. It's the same in decluttering, isn't it? You've got to practice it. And through the members area, we get those lessons. I think they're literally called lessons in how to declutter and which rooms to tackle and when. And obviously it's different for everybody. It's different, some people might have extremely tidy bedrooms but not so much of a tidy kitchen or whatever. I'm probably the other way around. So yeah, mainly it was the upstairs. Mostly it was the upstairs of my house that I needed to tackle, because the downstairs of my home, with lots of yoga students, upwards of 80 students a week coming into our downstairs area, that is kept pretty clean and tidy and very clutter free. As I mentioned, my husband is very, he keeps almost nothing. And so our living areas downstairs that translate into a yoga studio 4 days a week, that's all very clutter free. But upstairs, I needed to tackle. And so I spent, many a happy afternoon to myself following your video courses and tackling things upstairs in the bedrooms and the bathrooms. And it could be really small things like, I've spent a lovely hour going with my girls, going through all our makeup or nail polishes or whatever. I remember one time going through all my nail polishes with my younger daughter, and we got rid of about 40 nail polishes. I mean, I kid you not. And I very rarely wear nail polish.
That was the next question I wanted to ask you. Has it had an impact on your family and on your children as well, and on your partner? I found that very interesting.
It really has. Oh dear, I'm laughing because before lockdown, it got to the stage where my girls would say to me that they were almost frightened to come home from school to find out what mum had got rid of next. They were starting to get protective of their bedrooms and things in their rooms, because I'd got to the stage of, decluttering quite a lot. But typically I would make sure that even if I had brought it out of their rooms as a suggestion for what might go, I would actually, of course, make sure I'd asked their permission before anything did actually go. And for the most part, my older daughter is like my husband. She will let go of anything and everything, has no attachment to stuff. And my younger daughter is much more like me and just loves her things and finds it really hard to say goodbye and let go of things. So we've really enjoyed it, actually. I remember doing the kitchen utensil challenge one time, and obviously I mentioned that I don't like to cook. It's my husband who likes to cook, so the kitchen utensils are really his. So we went through that together, he and I, and he really enjoyed it, actually. We got rid of about half of our stuff. Stationery I've done with the girls. I remember there was one time it might have been in the 40-day challenge, we were getting rid of all winter hats and scarves and everything, and I was doing it by myself initially, and obviously stuff the girls had grown out of. And I mean, you wouldn't believe how many hats and scarves we've got or did have. It's absolutely ridiculous. But of course then my husband started actually pulling out coats and everything as well. This is not part of the challenge. I remember posting a photo, and it was like this massive pile in the whole floor that was not just hats and scarves and gloves. It was, coats and boots and everything as well, because he'd got involved. So right, we can get rid of this and this. And, so they're pleased. Yeah, actually, I'll tell you a little story, which is that when my husband and I were before we had our first child, and we were living in quite a small house. And so we were going to be moving to a bigger house, and the loft, I had put lots and lots of stuff in the loft, mostly empty boxes, because the house being brought up at home, my family had kept loads of stuff. That was what I thought people did, keep empty boxes. So they were all in the loft. I was very pregnant, so couldn't go in the loft at all myself. And so my husband had to do it all. It took him about a week. I remember him saying to me, this is taking so long. You've got so much stuff up there. And so, that was it. He said, you are never, ever putting anything in a loft again, ever. So we don't have anything in our loft at all, just nothing. And no empty boxes anymore, of course. They all go. As soon as anything comes in, the empty boxes go.
Yeah. So you've also had like a kind of, like you were saying, it's been really strange time over lockdown as well, isn't it, for you? Because you had 80 or 100 students during the week at home in your house all the time. And now all of a sudden, you've had to take your whole yoga studio online, and it's really impacted your time in lockdown, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I had to close the yoga studio even before lockdown, because one of my students who had been here unfortunately contracted the disease. He was really poorly for a while, but he is better now, thankfully. And amazingly, nobody else who was in that group did come down with COVID-19. But it did mean, he contacted me on the Sunday to let me know, and it did mean that I had to make the decision, obviously, that day, that there were going to be no more classes physically here. So I had literally 24 hours to decide, and get something up and running so that I didn't let any of my students down, so that they could still have their classes when they were expecting them on Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and all of the classes that I have during the week. I just completely went into overdrive trying to think what I could do, and recording yoga classes for each of my class that I would have, so that all of my students could still practice yoga with me, just in the comfort of their home rather than the comfort of my home, so that we kept everybody safe. There was no possibility I could carry on. I'd already been, doing the all of the cleaning and making sure people were washing hands, not lending out any equipment and things like that already, but it was just, overnight I had to switch to online business. So sadly, we were right in the middle of the 40-day, 40 items challenge, weren't we?
Yeah.
That I was absolutely loving. And I was posting every day that, way more than 40 items I was getting through. I think that might have been one of the points my girls were getting scared at what was going out, what was leaving, because you were really encouraging us to 40 days, 40 items, get it out the house as well. So I was really loving that challenge. And then this happened, and I just 100% focused on my yoga students, really, my yoga business, moving everything online, stopped decluttering, stopped posting on the Declutter Hub Facebook group, stopped going into the members area, just absolutely lost everything and anything I'd been doing with decluttering, which was a real shame. But I was 100% focused on, I've only ever done, before lockdown, yoga classes in person in my home. Barely need to advertise. All my classes are full with people from personal recommendation, from students that have been coming for 10 years and more, and barely had any knowledge of technology at all before all of this. And it was just been a huge learning curve, but one that's ultimately been quite successful, and I've managed it. I've done it. I felt really,
Do you think that because you had a lot less clutter in your house, you were able to focus on have that mindset to do this, because you didn't have so much clutter maybe in your brain?
Oh, brilliant question. Absolutely brilliant question. Yes, definitely, because clutter in your home, that physical clutter, absolutely translates into mental clutter, totally. So I think that's a fantastic question, that I was able just to switch, and my brain and my energy just was totally able to focus on that one thing, on moving all of my yoga classes and my yoga business online. Definitely. I think that's a great question. So I mentioned all of the downstairs of our house is always pretty clutter-free and tidy. We keep on top of it, mainly because of the yoga and people coming in, but because we really love it that way as well. It's wonderful to have that freedom of mind to be able to focus. So I think possibly that really is true. So I mentioned the snug that we have, and all of my yoga books and resources that I'm quite attached to were all in that snug, and I moved them all into our living area, which would have been the yoga studio, so that I had everything at hand around me.
And everything is settling down a bit, and you're now kind of pivoting back to doing some stuff in the Declutter Hub again, aren't you?
Yes, I felt after a few weeks, I don't know how long it was it 10 weeks or so of lockdown, or, and recording and doing online classes and things, I just suddenly started to feel as if I could breathe again and do things that I enjoyed again. We'd got into recording classes, sending out classes, keeping my whole community going, doing lots of Facebook Lives. So I was doing a Facebook Live every single day, and I'd learned that actually from you and Leslie, that keeping people connected through Facebook and doing the lives is a really brilliant way to keep your community engaged. And I felt that I owed it to my community. So I was doing Facebook Lives every day, and there was so much going on, and I didn't have room in my head for anything else at all. But I got to this stage where I felt as if I can lift my head up again. I can breathe. I can lift up and look up. And the girls had noticed, Mum, come on, there's things in the house again that need to go. There's rubbish here. And, because we don't buy loads, but there was things coming in or things they were growing out of. My daughter's now, she'll have finished school. She'll be going to college. She wants to get new clothes for college, fingers crossed. And come on, Mum, you've not been doing any decluttering. What's happening? You know? So I thought, you know what, I'm ready to get back into it. I'm ready to dive back into the membership area, into the Facebook group. And I reached out to you with the email and said, I'm so sorry you've not heard a thing from me for all these weeks. And I feel ready to kind of rejoin, actually. And if you would have me to be on the podcast. So yeah, and to do other things that I enjoy. I mentioned I enjoy sewing and things like that as well. So just finding a bit of time to do other things has been really, really a bit of a relief, actually.
Yeah.
So the yoga is settled. It's going. There's a structure now. The weekly classes are going. There's new courses here. Yeah, I just I mean, I remember during that 40-day challenge, as we said, just kind of my last post, I think, on the 40-day challenge was, today I've decided I have to declutter 80 people a week from my home. And, you know, I need to get on with focusing on taking yoga online. And then you heard nothing from me, absolutely nothing for...
But you know what? That's the thing. That's life as well. You know, sometimes things get in the way a little bit, but you know, there's always then that opportunity to come back and to kind of go, you know what, I'm going to pick up where I've left off. And just because you've left for a little bit, you're not forgotten. But sometimes things happen, and we all have the same. And that's why it's, you know, it's so interesting to hear your story. And last question I want to ask you, Tracy, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners? Things that you think, you know what, that's been really brilliant. I've really learned that in this decluttering journey.
Yeah, in a way, I think decluttering and yoga are quite the same in you saying that, you know, you can leave it for a while and things get in the way. And, you know, perhaps either with a decluttering journey like mine or, you know, a yoga practice, things get in the way and you lose your way for a bit. And that's okay. It's always ready and willing to take you back, definitely. And I think the other thing is a lot of people think perhaps, you know, this decluttering is not for me. My home is fine. You know, I'm not a hoarder. You know, I remember Jill saying in the podcast that she did with Leslie recently that she was, you know, watching the hoarding programs thinking this isn't me. And then one thing made her say, do you know what? Things could be better. I don't want to live like this anymore. And whether it's just, you know, I mean, my home does not have lots of clutter, but we really like very little. So it's just that acknowledgement, that kind of understanding that decluttering, like yoga, even if you're not at the extreme of needing it, it can really help to bring you happiness and to bring you joy and just to live with more freedom, to live more contently, having a more of a decluttered home. Similar to yoga, a decluttered mind and a body free of pain, then it just allows you to live more at ease with yourself and your family as well. So yeah, so I would really encourage anybody to join you, because it has definitely helped me to kind of, you know, to get over that final hurdle. That I mentioned the non-attachment earlier, and I think that was where I really struggled. I was attached to things, and going through your lessons and your courses, I have learned how to not be quite so attached, how to let things go. And from that letting go of things, I've been able to be more at ease, be more joyful, be calmer in my home and in my way of living at home, definitely. So yeah, so I definitely encourage anyone to join you, and at least join the Facebook group. It's a fantastic community, really friendly, and people from all over the world, aren't they? It's lovely. Yeah. I love it.
Well, we love having you as our VIP member, Tracy.
Thank you.
It's so lovely to have you in the membership. And thank you for sharing with me this morning your journey about your home and your life and how linked decluttering and yoga are. It's so interesting.
I know, they are.
So thank you for being here and being our guest. And we'll put all of your details, your website and your Facebook page, etc., all in the show notes. If you'd like to find out more about Tracy, definitely make sure. And we'll also put in the show notes all the podcasts that are Tracy's favorites. We'll put those in the show notes as well. So if you want to have a listen to them or go back to them and maybe re-listen to them, you can definitely do so. So thanks, Tracy, so much for your time.
Thank you so very much for having me, Ingrid. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, listeners, I hope you have learned a lot today as well, and Tracy's insights have been helpful for you, and you feel inspired to take action. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, I am going to join the membership. That sounds amazing. We would love to have you. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with others. Maybe your friends or family would love our show too. And on our show notes page, you can find the sharing buttons. And if you want more handy tips and advice from Leslie and I, you can find us in lots of places. And exactly like Tracy said, we have a fantastic supportive Facebook group called the Declutter Hub Community, which is a great starting point. And we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can find us as @Declutter Hub, and we'd love to see you there. If you want to know more about our membership, check out members.declutterhub.com. Now, if you don't want to miss the next weekly episode, please subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast, and it will pop up your notifications each Friday. And we've been asking for reviews, which make a huge difference to us. So if you've enjoyed today's podcast or any other one, we'd love for you to take a couple of minutes of your day to leave us a review. So thanks so much for listening, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.